a child would be screaming for mom. Did you do that?
No,
No.
I didn't have those feelings of fear, Art. I experienced the being that came into my room at night have the same love for me and the same feelings for me as my grandfather did.
So you took it as a natural, as a child would take magic as a natural thing.
Exactly. Normal. Like you were saying about my experience being abnormal. My perception is it's a normal experience. And it's abnormal not to have these experiences.
Uh-oh.
Abnormal not to be aware of these experiences.
I don't have those, Joy.
Well, maybe you do. I was 44 years old, Art, and these beings had been taking me, and I'd experienced them all my life, and didn't know it was them until January 31st, 1993. I mean, I'd experienced light. I had this being come into my room. I'd had all this phenomena occur to me throughout my life, but I never knew these beings came in ships, and I didn't know the way they looked until I was 44 years old.
All right, might I ask, how do they look?
Now, me?
Yes.
I experienced them in a swirl, like a vortex of blue-white light, and their forms, their physical form that they have is about 5'7", 5'8", about my height. Actually, I'm almost 5'9", and delicate, 4 fingers, large head, big eyes, no pupils. Heard that before, huh?
I certainly have.
And how can, somebody have the experiences that, I share with people that I've had, and then the terror that some people experience, and then the joy that I experience. Those kinds of things, are a paradox, if you will.
Well, they are.
Seemingly.
Where to start here? What have they done to you? Let's see how much joy we feel at hearing what happened to you. I said the long needle in the ear. Medical experiments. What have they done to you?
Well, see, my perception of what has been going on with my body is that they're not medical experiments.
Okay.
I perceive them as physical adjustments to my form. When they came and told me in 1993 it's time to remember, I remembered that I was not my body. I remembered that this body is only a vehicle that I live in while I'm in this dimension. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of different worlds, and there are thousands of different forms of life. I mean, visually, if you just look at the world that we see with our eyes, it's phenomenal, from the ants to the trees. I mean, the life forms are just, awesome. So there are thousands and thousands of realms, like your program investigates, that people do not see with their eyes. And also time and space.
All right. Well, when my dentist tells me she's going to perform a physical adjustment to my form, or my body, I know what's coming. Now somehow your perception of whatever it was they have done is very different than that.
No, it's not, actually.
It's not.
In the beginning it was. At first, when I first realized that this had been happening to me my whole life, and I started remembering these incidents about having a needle put into my eye, implants put into my body.
Now, wait a minute, Joy. A needle in your eye?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Yes.
See, there's no way I could work that up into a soft, loving experience.
Well, that's because a lot of people perceive themselves as their form. They think that they are their body,
Do you know any background? I mean, do you have any idea, for example, why was a needle put in your eye?
Yeah, I know exactly why. It had an implant on it, and it was a crystal implant that was put on my pineal gland.
For the purpose of what? Seeing what you see?
Vision. It's called vision. Instead of seeing with my eyes, I see with my mind. It's the only way I know how to talk about it. It's as if the top part of my head has been eliminated. Very much like that. And even though I do visually see things with my eyes, and I see the inanimate and animate objects that exist within the phenomenal world,
yes,
I also experience other dimensions simultaneously while I live in form.
What are you
such
able?
As light.
So you have almost supervision. In other words, you are seeing things the rest of us do not see.
Yes.
Describe them.
Okay. Usually when I go out and lecture art, I go into a room and there's maybe, between, depending on the lecture, maybe between 70 and 150 to 200 people. And as I'm standing out there looking at those people sitting in the audience, I begin to tell them my story. And as I look at them, all I see is light. And I can see beings around them. I can see layers of creation. And it's more like the seeing is not with the eyes as much as with the mind.
Layers of creation?
There are like thousands of different layers of creation. Now, when you look into like wood, in essence, wood is just particles of light. So, each of us come from the same substance. Physics will tell you that. There's a unified field theory. There's all creation is sustained and maintained by, this essence of light, the subtler layers of creation, these nuclear subatomic particles that emit out of an essence, if you will, or a source.
Do you believe you're seeing at the molecular level?
Yes, I do. And I believe that it's more a vision and more a feeling, if you will, than a, seeing like with the eyes, although there's tremendous light.
What does it enable you to discern?
What is it that enables me to discern?
No, what is it you are able to discern from it? In other words...
what am I gleaning from all this?
Well, from that site, for example, are you able to... I know that some people can look at auras and determine health. I know that, or claim they can. And I'm just wondering what you
value
discern.
Is it?
Yes, what do you discern from it?
Yeah, I use it to fulfill my purpose. My experience is that when the beings came to me and told me it's time to remember, I remembered that I'd taken form in this dimension in order to serve creation with a specific task, which is what they told me specifically, that my job was to activate those whose time it is to remember. So when I'm with people, I don't really, even though I'm carrying on a conversation with them, my experience is that my relationship with them is cellular. It's energy. It has nothing to do with what I'm sharing with on the level of the word, if you will. However, we live in a culture and a society that is very intellectual and is trying to assess and determine what's happening with these beings and why they're here and why are they so prevalent and how come so many people are being abducted and what does that mean to me and how does that affect my life and and what's happening.
Those are supposed to be all my questions.
I'm sorry. I don't know. You see how it happens.
Yeah, those are supposed to be all my questions. But we will ask all those, and those are things we sure want to know. Yeah. They came to you, and they, in essence, told you it's time to remember. Now, prior to that, you did have, or you did not have, any conscious remembrance of all this as a child, or did this come to you only when they said, it's time to remember?
It came to me only when they said, it's time to remember. I remembered the experiences, I remembered the light, I remembered the beings, but I had no idea that I had a relationship with these kinds of entities that came in ships, particularly ships that look like they came right out of a 1950 science fiction film. So I was not pleased at all the first time I saw the ship. Now, you have to understand, even though I did do art, I did do a lot of work in what you might consider spiritual, my reasons for going to India and my reasons for studying with the Rishi and the Tibetan Lamas was only to integrate the things that were happening to me on a precognitive level. It wasn't like I thought I was going to be a Tibetan Buddhist or thought I was going to be a Hindu. It was merely a way to integrate and all in those cultures, the kinds of experiences I was having as a child and in my early adulthood were considered normal, natural experiences, where in our Western society, the kinds of experiences I was having were not acceptable. They were schizophrenic, if you will. And so I came back after studying with these people and went to school and got my degrees and was very successful in the world. Have a beautiful daughter who's just about ready to graduate from college, and have a wonderful husband, and became a successful citizen. Nobody knew I'd been to India. Nobody knew I did that stuff. That was mine. It was personal. It had nothing to do with anybody else.
Well, I'm sure I'm like everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you carefully, and it's just like when you meet somebody, you're very articulate, and you sound very normal to me, and I'm listening for any tinges of schizophrenic vibration, and I'm not getting that. You sound very, very normal. Now, you're not saying very normal things, but you sound very normal.
Thank you. Yes, I am very normal.
All right. You mentioned, let me see if I can get you in a little trouble.
Okay,
or
go
not.
for it.
You mentioned creation.
Yes.
It's a very sensitive subject with a lot of people, Joy.
Uh-huh.
These beings that you have been interacting with, are they representatives of the Creator? Are they the creators? What part of creation?
What a great question. Oh, I love that question. Thank you so much.
Glad you like it.
So many people, like I really did some research after this thing occurred to me in 1993. And I looked at a lot of the literature and found that there were kind of two camps. One was a group of people who were trying to create a religion out of it. And then a group of people who were saying, "Oh my God, this is the scourge of the earth, and they're experimenting with our bodies." The trauma, people who were in tremendous suffering and trauma over what was happening to them. And since my experience fell what I perceived in the middle, that's why I wrote the book. But for me, these experiences, like you and like me and like all the other people that are out there in your audience and everywhere in the world, including frogs and even fleas, and each aspect of creation fulfills a service. We are all here. We are all part of creation. These beings are a part of creation, just like us. Creation.
So they were themselves created.
Exactly. Yeah, they're a part of the phenomenal world. They're part of existence. And now, there's this whole thing like, now they're coming. They haven't been here. They've always been here, Art. This is just now we're becoming aware that they're here. That's all. It's we who are changing. We are becoming aware that these things are going on in the world and in the universe.
All right, let me try this out on you.
Okay.
How do you know that these beings, rather than being extraterrestrial or hyperdimensional, might not be angelic?
My perception, for me, is that they are very definitely angelic.
I beg your pardon. Now, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they don't have form, and that doesn't mean they're not, hyperdimensional. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I certainly do.
So my experience with them, my daughter almost died right after she was born. I was laying down, and this I remembered. All this stuff I remembered without a key, without the final key that they gave me that night in 1993 in January. But she was very ill, Art. It was devastating for me being a new mother. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. She was a week and a half old. I laid her in her crib and just tried to get some sleep. I laid down on the bed, and a few minutes after I was laid down on the bed, I literally felt someone kick me hard in the butt.
Oh, really?
Yes, and my body got up, and I went over to her, and I felt her head and took her temperature. She had a temperature of 107. I called the doctor, took her into the hospital, and within moments she was in intensive care, and they were doing what they could to save her life.
An angelic kick in the butt?
Hey, man. I didn't know where it came from, Art. I didn't know where it came from, but I knew that something had interceded there and saved my daughter's life. The doctors told me that if it had gone on any longer, that temperature, that she would have died.
Oh, of course. divine intervention. That's a guardian angel.
That's right. And at the time, I didn't realize that these beings were the same beings. They've been with me my whole life, caring for me in that way, loving me, leading me, guiding me, protecting me. And that's my experience of them. The love that I feel for them is more profound than a mother feels for her child.
Why do you think that beings that operate at a spiritual level need anything to do with our bodies?
Oh, beautiful question.
Physical bodies, yeah.
Our bodies are like cars. And a car has the ability to take you somewhere.
Yes.
Without a car, you don't always get to New York, or you can't get to the store. But when you're in a body, when you're in a physical form, you have an opportunity to have experiences that you cannot have when you're not in form. But that body, like I believe, my perception is my body has been manipulated by them in order to have and to experience frequencies of energy that I experience now, such as a radio. It's like when they took an implant out of me.
All right, Joy, hold it right there.
Okay.
That's a good place to hang them all up anyway, and we'll do the news and be right back. Joy Gilbert, abductee, interesting abductee from Oregon, is my guest, and we'll be right back. Now, back to Oregon, and Joy Gilbert. Joy, hi.
Hi.
All right. We were talking a little bit about creation, and somebody faxed me a question. By the way, if you want to fax a question for Joy, it's 702-727-8499. This one says, Art, I was wondering, if humans and aliens are creation, then who is the creator? Thanks, Tom in San Francisco.
Very good question. Well, I don't think the creator can be comprehended with the thinking mind. It can be experienced and comprehended on the level of knowledge, the level of knowing, the level of understanding. And that's what happened to me on the ship that night when they told me it's time to remember. It was as if those words went into me, and I experienced, the only thing that I can call it is like the 0 point, the essence, the source, and I remembered all the aspects of creation and all the worlds and all the universes, Art, that I had ever been, and simultaneously I remembered everything that I would be as well. So it was as if for me time and space literally collapsed. And I remembered that I was that. I was the essence of creation. I was not joy. I was not what I appeared to be. I was not that. I was much more. I was a vast entity that existed in thousands of different realms simultaneously while sustaining this body and looking and living this life. But what we experience as our life is very, very small in this dimension. I mean, we take on form, we live in this body for what is a very short time, and yet we perceive that it's long when we're here. But in essence, it's as long as a butterfly landing on the tip of a needle and then flying away. Such a short time compared to the vastness of who we really are.
I perceive it as a short time.
Yeah,
I do.
You would.
It feels a short time, and it seems like the older you get, the shorter it feels like.
Yeah.
You mentioned the final key. Was the final key the order to remember?
I believe that was the significant moment. That was the moment when my cellular structure was activated. They took out an implant that evening and held it up for me to see, and you have to know me. At first, when I looked at it, Art, I thought it was a Christmas tree. Now, I wasn't happy about the events that were going on that table because this was the first time I was totally conscious while all these physical manipulations occurred to my form. But when the doctor took out the implant and put it up for me to see, I knew what it was. And it was 2 triangles piggyback. And they were that metallic substance that you were talking about earlier, you and Linda Howe?
Yes.
That's what they looked like. They were shiny, metallic, paper-thin substance that was 4 inches in diameter. And but it looked as though I knew that if I touched it, I could put it in my hand and crinkle it up. I knew that it was pliable. I knew that it could never really be damaged. And it was in my body. And when they removed it, or when the doctor removed it, I knew that had been in my body in order for me to tune in, if you will, to the frequencies which they were on, if you will.
Was this for you to listen to them, or them to listen to you, or both?
My perception is that it allowed me to attune my physical form to that layer of creation, that level of awareness, that level of knowledge. So I would have to say that both things occurred, that they could tune into me and I could tune into them.
All right, why you?
Oh, I don't think it is just me, Art. You know, I mean, you go around the world, you know, I listen, all the people that come up to me when I lecture, it's just stunning. The amount of people are having exactly the same kinds of experiences I have, only there's such a stigma and so much fear surrounding this phenomena that they're afraid to come out and even talk about the fact that they feel love for these beings and they're having powerfully spiritual awakenings inside themselves. I mean, they're just, you know, they're so used to all this negative hoorah, you know, surrounding the phenomena that they don't want to come forward. But,
well,
you know?
Well, I thinking about it objectively now, I don't think I've had an experience, at least none that I remember. And I really don't want one.
Okay. Well, I think the thing is that in creation, you know, I mean, before this happened to me, or before I remembered all the things that I remembered about being with them and all that kind of stuff, you know, I was watching TV at one point, and I was flipping the channels, and I paused on a station where there's gentlemen. Maybe it was the Betty. I think it was like the Betty and, you know, the couple.
Betty and Dreesen.
Yeah, I think they were on, and I briefly paused on the channel, and I remember, you know, listening to the hypnotic tape or something like that. Betty was talking or something, and the fear that came through me was just as powerful and just as real as I'm sure what everyone feels who thinks that could be something that is happening to them.
Okay, let me try this angle. I guess maybe the reason I say I don't want an experience like that is I'm kind of a control freak. I would go nuts if I thought somebody had something in me or was in some way controlling me. That would drive me crazy. I want to be in control myself. And
totally. I totally relate to what you're saying because I'm the same way. And when I became aware that this was happening, I went through a period of absolute devastation and shattered. And I felt literally like a moth being drawn into a flame. And I went through a period of anger and resentment. But while that was occurring, I was also experiencing the joy and absolutely profound phenomenal experiences. I mean, the orgasms, excuse me. But I mean, I don't.
Well, as long as we're on the subject, isn't it a little like rape?
Great. I'll tell you, those were some of the feelings that I had. But the reality is, Art, is that we live in a culture where we perceive that we are alone and that we are intelligent and that we are the masters of ourselves and, you know, we are the individual, all-powerful, all-knowing. And the reality is we are only an aspect of creation. I mean, particularly Westerners have this perception that, you know, we create our own destiny and that everything that happens to us, you know, we're responsible for and we can change it. And it's true. I mean, in reality, a part of that is also true, but we are also a part of a vast creation, which we are integrated into. We are an integral part of that, and the will of creation is going to be sustained over what you want.
Sort of
just the way it is.
Sort of an independent marionette.
Yeah, you got it. So, like, no, what I have in my little mind is joy, wanted to have an experience like that or thought that was happening to my life. No. But as the person I am now, it was a part. It was an integral part of what made me who I am at this moment. And who I am at this moment is absolutely magnificent, just like you are. Everything that's happened to you in your life makes you the person that you are, and everything leads to the next step. It's all planned. A lot of people are going, oh, predestined. I think it's an unfoldment. Creation is just an unfoldment. Each of us participate in it, exactly the way we're supposed to, and we play our little role out. There's not as much choice as people would like to believe. There just isn't. Even if you look at the workings of the body just for a moment, my God, it's fabulous. The bones within our bodies, every 2 years you have completely new skeletal systems.
So we're just running around thinking that we're orchestrating what's happening, but we're not in the larger picture. We are not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the dream. This is the dreamer is dreaming a dream, and we are the dream. And we are also the dreamer simultaneously. So we're participating in the dream. We create the phenomenal world in order to experience ourselves.
What do you think constitutes what we call reality?
I think what we in this culture, or we in all the cultures, when we look at a table and see it as table, or that's a big question. What constitutes reality? I think that our level of awareness constitutes reality. What is our perception? That constitutes our reality, and each person's reality is different.
Yes.
Totally.
I've wondered about that a lot. Very much individual reality, so maybe there is no single reality. It's a flowing thing.
No, yeah, exactly. And that's the beauty of it all. That's the joy of it.
All right. An obvious question, Joy, is what is the interaction for? Why are they interacting with us? What's the purpose?
It's time for them to interact. It's time for us to remember who we are, Art. You see, if you look around the globe, you see thousands of people finally becoming aware that they aren't the only beings here. All the people down in Mexico, in Mexico City, who saw the sighting, of the...
Oh, I know.
Thousands and thousands of people.
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. Well, thank you. First time ever in their lives, they had a cognition that they weren't the only intelligent beings in on this planet or in life. That is a powerful.
It is, and it's my understanding, by the way, Joy, that it's happening so frequently in Mexico and around Mexico City now that the Mexican people, and this may go toward proving me wrong, the Mexican people are almost taking it for granted now. And there have been various studies, Joy, that show that if the American people, in fact the world, were to be aware that there were others of greater intellect, greater technological development than ourselves, we'd go nuts. Society would, in effect, fall.
Well, the thing is you see, Art, you see how these ships are manifesting in TV commercials.
Oh, yes.
The prevalence in our subconscious and our conscious mind our conscious mind now is so overwhelming. It's because we are becoming an enlightened population of beings, if you will. We're moving towards a greater awareness of our role in the universe.
So you're pretty sure we are evolving and not devolving?
Absolutely. The illusion that things are being, destroyed is fabulous. Anytime you take a seed in the ground and you plant it, the seed has to die in order for the plant to emerge out from the ground into the sun.
That's true.
It's just so natural what's happening. And so the earth is changing. The earth, like you were talking about earlier in your program about the earthquakes that are happening. This is what my friend said. There are going to be earthquakes, earth changes, economic systems are collapsing.
You always manage to get just a step ahead of me. That's exactly where I was going. Did they tell you, did they show you, what do you know about Earth changes?
Yes. What I know is that it's happening very rapidly right now.
Yes.
And that it will increase. And that the only thing that each of us can do is to focus on ourselves. This stuff about taking our energy into areas where we are constantly dealing with fighting with people or looking at the negative aspect of life is serves no one and no thing. And the reality is that right now, I mean, according to these beings, they've asked me to share certain things with people.
All right.
And so I go around and I lecture and I share these things, but the most critical thing that you can do for yourself is to experience joy. I mean, we live in a culture, we live in a society, we live in a world that is so incredibly beautiful. And yet most of the stuff in our culture, in the media, focuses on all the bitter fighting, people dying, negativity everywhere.
Yes.
And joy is one of the most powerful things that someone can experience. It takes no courage to suffer in this world. There is suffering upon suffering upon suffering, and yet it takes a powerful amount of courage to experience joy and sustain it. And, you know, I mean, nobody gets awards for being happy in this culture. You know, you get awards, you know, you go out in the media and they want to hear trauma, misery, and suffering. You know, they want to capitalize on somebody else's loss, somebody else's pain. And so it takes no courage for people to experience those levels of suffering. It just doesn't, but it does take courage for people to experience joy.
So if the West Coast begins to shift about, the media will report it certainly as a disaster, but you would think of it as a joyful occurrence and simply part of what's occurring. Is that about right?
I would. And same for the loss of life.
How much? The loss of life too.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's a part of creation, just like your skin cells dying.
So there's lots of joy ahead then.
There is, Art. There's a lot of good things coming for us.
There's about an hour and a half of this Joy left, so stay right there, Joy, and we'll get back to you. Joy Gilbert is my guest, and we will begin taking calls. Want to talk to somebody who's been abducted? Have questions? Your opportunity's coming up on Dreamland. I'm Art Bell. This is CBC. All right, back now to Joy Gilbert in Oregon. Joy, I've had a whole spectrum of people on this program who have dealt with abductions, from John Mack to some of the best in the biz, and Bud Hopkins. And I've asked people like that, Bud particularly, if you had an encounter or you had a choice to have an encounter, would you embrace it or would you run like hell? And most of the big researchers, Joy, say run like hell. I take it that would not be your advice.
Oh, you know, you can't stop the inevitable flow of creation moving. You know, it's going to happen, whether you believe it or not. It's going to happen whether you want it to happen or not. I mean, this is a part of what's happening in this dimension. You know, we have this idea that we're all knowing and all controlling and all those kinds of things. And like I said earlier, there's a whole lot going on here on this planet that will be revealed within the next 40 years.
What about the sexual aspect of it, Joy? Is there one?
Well, there's a manufacturing of bodies occurring, which has been occurring since the beginning. You know, I mean, we look around and we think that this planet, you know, has been only populated by human beings in the last, 4 to 5 million years. In essence, you know, it's like more like 66 million years.
The manufacturing of bodies.
Yes. I refer to it in that way because that's what I've seen on the ships and that's what I've experienced myself personally.
Do you think that you have been implanted with?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think. I know.
You know?
Yes.
Have you had children that are?
Yes, I have.
Hybrids, Joy?
Well, I've also had children that are look like you and me. Art?
Both?
Yes. My genetic material has been used to manufacture other bodies.
Those that are not human, as you and I are, Joy, those children that you've had in that category, what was the manner of impregnation? Was it clinical?
Yes, it was all clinical.
All clinical.
All of it, including the manufacturing of bodies that look like our form.
All right. Let me try this. A couple of people faxing, and then we'll go to the phones.
Sure.
We could call you the abductee with the rose-colored glasses because you're pretty happy about it all. Can you tell us the usefulness of life forms like the Ebola virus, anthrax, staph bacteria? I know what your answer to that would be.
Yeah.
Because I've been listening to you, and I'm not sure that faxer has. But they are part of the great joy that would be like the joy of the earth moving, right?
Well, the reality is that we live in polarity. I mean, as soon as creation emerges out of the source of creation, out of it, the essence, it exists in polarity. Without polarity, we cannot exist in form.
All right, then here is another part of that polarity. Art and Joy, if we are all playing out our parts in creation, are mass murderers and serial killers playing too?
Yes. That's right. That's a very difficult concept for people. I remember the psychologist coming up to me, and she said, she had worked down in Los Angeles with gangs and, boys. And now you have to remember my background too, Art. I worked in child abuse. When you work in child abuse, you're working with adults who aren't worthy of having children, and then abusing them. So now you're talking to a woman who has seen a lot of suffering.
People these days are looking at people who worked with abused children, who others would consider like abductees, and they're saying what's happening is memories, false memories, are being injected into these children's psyche.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, they're saying that these children aren't really experiencing
like some charge abductees are not experiencing anything. Yes.
Well, I think the reality is, whatever you experience, no matter how it's perceived or what you think it is, real or not, it's a real experience. So whether these children have experienced something or not, if there's trauma there, something has happened. Whether it's an abduction experience.
I know, Joy, but when it's Joy telling us about an abduction experience, that's one thing. When it's parents who are going to end up charged with child abuse, it's something else.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I don't see the difference.
I do.
Okay.
In other words, you said whether it's real or not, it's an experience, it's trauma. Well,
I think that people choose the experiences that they have in life, and I don't think that there's much give on that. I think that we all, and that's very difficult for a lot of people to perceive when they think of themselves and their life as the only important thing that exists. And who they are and what they think is the only important thing. And I agree, because I have a life, and I have a daughter, and I have a husband, and I've lived my life too. And my life hasn't always been rose-colored glasses. But I can assure you, when you tap in to the whole picture, so when you get your body plugged in to creation, and you see the way creation operates, you understand that the experiences that people have, whether they appear to be real or not, are only an illusion. And this phenomenal existence that we identify with so vehemently and fight over and hurt each other over and cry over is just particles of light.
But if Joy's husband were to be charged with child molestation of his own children, it would be a very important distinction.
I don't think so. I think that I go around with my life, and things happen to me, and people, die, and those kinds of things, and I look at it the same way. Now, before the beings came and told me it's time to remember, I'd have to agree that I perceived it the way you do, but I don't look at the world that way anymore, Art. It doesn't happen that way for me anymore. When I walk out into the world, I feel that I'm you. I'm one with all things. I don't see a separation between good and
husband was behind bars and you were pressing your hand against the glass talking to him and he was there arrested for child abuse, would you say, look, honey, it doesn't matter whether this really happened or whether it's just a profound trauma being remembered in this way, it's your position to be back there behind bars?
I would be supportive and loving for any person that I loved and cared for in a situation of suffering.
Yes.
Whether it be being accused of a crime they didn't commit or, being accused of a crime they did commit and having to accept the consequences of that. One or the other. Suffering is still going to exist with both, in both situations. So you're asking me how I feel in that situation?
Well, no, I'm saying, wouldn't you suddenly be very interested in proving the distinction between an imagined wrong and the real thing?
No.
God, that's incredible. All right.
Sorry.
No, that's all right, Joy. I'm here to find out what you believe. Not impress you with what I believe. All right, here's my question.
Darn it.
Please ask Joy what she thinks of this. I have had a childhood memory since the age of 3 of seeing a man in the hallway of our home in the middle of the night. I remember calling him, in quotes, the balloon head man.
I love it.
Since his head was so much larger in relation to his body. He did not look like a normal human, no clothes, no noticeable gender. I've also stared at the constellation Pleiades since I was a little girl, before I ever knew what it was. I have never been able to figure this all out. Please have Joy call me if she can explain any of this. Nancy is her name, and she's somewhere around Sacramento.
I'll be in Sacramento, so she can talk to me directly.
Oh,
I'll
when?
be there in June.
In June?
June 11th, I'll be speaking at East West Bookstore. So tell her to call East West Bookstore, and I'll be happy to chat with her about those perceptions.
All right, are you up for some calls?
Yeah.
All right, let me give the East of the Rockies line, the only one that I have not given. In addition, let me repeat my World Wide Web address. Picture of the Roswell debris, or whatever it is, the alleged debris, is up there. Pretty good, high-quality scan, the Richard Hoagland photos, and so much more. It's simply on the web at www.artbell.com. That's www.artbell, no spaces in there, that's ARTBELL.com. Take a look, it's all up there. Now, east of the Rockies, that is the only number not given out by our little number tape. It is 1-800-825-5033. That's 1-800-825-5033. My guest is Joy Gilbert. And Joy, if you're ready, here it comes.
All right.
All right. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with Joy Gilbert. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. Turn your radio off. Call us toll-free at 1-800-618-8255. No, dude. Don't give us your last name, please.
I'm sorry.
Let's begin at the beginning and give us only your first name and where you're calling from.
Okay, my name is Dina, and I'm from Reno, Nevada.
Reno, okay.
And I totally understand what Joy Gilbert's talking about. And I believe that more emphasis should be put on individuality and evolution, and that if there is more looking into that type of research, that it wouldn't seem so metaphysical. It would seem more down to earth, and people would understand it better.
All right, you agree with that, Joy?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think scientists run around in circles looking at the wrong thing.
Do you think, Joy, the hard sciences are a waste of time?
No, I think they fulfill a purpose. But I think that that even hard science is moving into Dina. Is that her name, Dina?
I believe that was correct. No, she's gone now, but
I think that it's moving into the direction, like the kind of your program you have, Art, and the physicists and people like that you get on your show are fabulous in terms of, their understanding of the universe. I think it's significant. However, I think, again, you're dealing with the thinking mind, and in order to really comprehend the universe, you have to transcend what you think. You have to transcend what you believe. You have to lose your mind, in a sense, to find it.
All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Joy Gilbert.
This is Wes from St. Augustine,
Florida. Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask her what's the longest amount of time she's ever spent on one of these crafts?
3 days.
3 days.
3 of these days, of our days. In this body.
During that time, were you fed?
Yes.
On those ships, do they have kitchen, bathroom, bed,
No.
that sort of thing?
No.
Is it better than airline food?
No. I mean, it's not at all better than airline food. So imagine that. No, the food substances that I received were, one substance was kind of a liquid honey type substance. Another substance that I was given was a cubic sugar-like substance.
Really?
Yes. And,
nutritious, but not necessarily appetizing.
Absolutely not. It was disgusting. In fact, I told them I was full. I didn't really want to eat.
You take this all so well.
Thank you.
I mean, with such great humor.
I do, because when it happened, Art, obviously, if you talked to me a day after it happened, I was in shock. I was devastated, even though I was feeling the love that I had felt all my life from these beings, with them, and knowing that they had been with me all my life, and knowing they'd saved my daughters, knowing that these beings were always leading me and caring for me, and yet I saw them physically. I saw what they looked like, and yes, that's devastating to have somebody touch you with a hand that the skin texture is different than the skin texture. But what
is it like? Scaly?
Oh no, it's just rubbery.
Rubbery, great. Well, any rubbery thing approaches me with a needle to stick in my eye, and it's going to get a knuckle sandwich.
Okay, all right.
See, that's going to be my feeling about
it. Well,
the
thing is that, fear really keeps people from experiencing what's happening with this phenomena. When you're afraid, you react to the situation, you see it totally different. I mean, like a child, for instance.
It's sort of like how I learned to love the bomb.
Love the what?
The bomb. Don't you remember that old expression?
No.
How I learned to love the bomb?
No, I don't know that one.
No, that was about the atomic bomb. It was kind of a dark comedy. Anyway.
That is a dark comedy.
East of the Rocky, well, it would be a joyful experience from your point of view.
It's a part of life.
There you are.
It's a part of life.
East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Joy Gilbert. Where are you, please?
Peoria, Art.
Peoria, Illinois. Yes, sir.
Art, this is lunacy. You've got to start doing some homework before you put these people on the air. This is reminiscent of the Bigfoot character of a few weeks back.
Oh, we're going to have Bigfoot on again?
And what is it? I mean,
well, just because you think that it's so far out, or I might think it's so far out, doesn't make it necessarily lunacy.
Well, I guess that's your interpretation, Art. It's just crazy to take an experience like that and try to turn it into some type of a positive experience is beyond me.
Well, look, I don't react to it that way either. As you must know if you've been listening.
With Joy here, everything is light, good. It's spirit, it's happiness.
Yep.
That's right.
No, that's right, sir.
That's exactly
I guess maybe I wish I could be so positive.
Well, I do too.
Well, you are. It's this fellow and myself that, as I said, anybody comes at me with a needle and they're gonna, I'm gonna find out how quickly that gray skin will go down.
Right.
So.
I don't see a separation between me and them, and I don't see a separation between you and me. So when you see everything as one thing, it's all you.
Yeah, that's the reason she's on here, sir. She has seen something in a way that you haven't, and I sure haven't.
You're right, I sure haven't.
All right, thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
So there you are. There's going to be a lot of people who are not going to understand your attitude about this.
No, they're not.
But that's why we have this program, Joy.
Yeah, thank you.
It's not just for things that we understand. That's for sure. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Joy Gilbert.
Hi. Hello, Joy and Art.
Hi.
I don't think the Bigfoot guy was insane. I don't think this person is. I think these people, they just seem so genuine to me. I mean,
Well, that's the way I'm reading it, too.
That's how I feel. Okay, a couple of questions. How now this may sound a little flip, but how would you encourage something like this to happen? Because my life is so incredibly mundane. No, I'm being serious. I mean, if you were to see a craft, you know, I mean, I've tried to signal them, and I've seen half a dozen things, different, you know, craft in my life, and I've tried to signal them, you know, get their attention. And I mean, have you ever done anything to get their attention?
So this would spice up. It would spice up your life a little bit. You wouldn't mind it happening, right?
Yeah.
Right.
See, like we have this perception that everything is happening outside of us. And what's your name, sir?
I'm Brian.
Brian. And the reality is that we are a microcosm, and that microcosm is a reflection of the universe. So I meditated for 26 years, and I really see the correlation between the meditation that I did and these kinds of experiences. And so, I know a lot of people go out with flashlight and do that kind of thing. All I did was sit and meditate, and this happened to me. They came to me. And so, it can happen to you too. You have to go within yourself. You have to meditate. You have to focus on yourself. You have to begin to see the beauty in life.
All right, you two, we're going to have to hold it there because we have a break. Stand by, Joy, and we'll be right back to you. I'll tell you this. Every now and then, my wife and I will be out walking. We'll see strange lights. We're near Dreamland. There are things in the air out here. I joke, and I'll flash the flashlight up at it and kind of blink at it. And she'll say, no, put that down. Don't bring it over here. I don't want a thing to do with it. Anyway, Joy Gilbert back on Dreamland in a moment. I'm Art Bell.
Safe and effective workout. So let's get started.